Hi team, my name is Katie and I am the head coach at Equestrian Movement. This week we're putting together some trainings on nailing the canter strike-off. The canter strike-off can be one of those problem areas for lots of horse riders. So there's two main things that I wanted to go into with regards to how to get it accurate every time and to be able to get it on the marker instead of the horses rushing into canter, losing like the quality of the stride in that strike off. So there's two main reasons for why your horse may not get the canter lead every time. The first reason is cue training, so being able to train your horse into that canter lead cue. And the second reason is if your horse is working crooked and it can't actually pick that canter lead up. So we're going to start off watching Phoenix, and he is going to be our horse to watch with regards to cue training those canter leads in, because he's got them really nicely cued into that strike off aid. So I like to tell my students that you can teach your horse anything if you know how to cue train. You can teach your horse to strike off into canter by doing a handstand, as long as you know how to communicate, mark and reward the behavior. So when we're looking at cue training, we're looking at how effective we are in marking and rewarding the behavior, and so we're aiming to not drill for perfection but reward for effort. So when we get into our canter leads, the most effective way I find for cue training the canter leads is to get the strike off the inside leg. So we're asking our horse to wait for and prepare for us to use our inside leg, and then we use the inside leg as our canter strike off aid. That way we can always differentiate which canter lead we want. And it means that when we come to refining that strike off from between the letters to on the letters, we can, really perfectly nail that strike off to be on the letter, because it's as we apply the inside leg. So our outside leg is saying think, prepare, get ready, and you want to feel your horse's shift in weight distribution and balance. That would suggest to you that they're thinking about cantering. And then you're communicating to your horse, don't canter until I use my inside leg, and then you can use your inside leg to perfectly nail that strike off every time you ask. This also makes life easier when we go into our harder canter lead changes, like our walk through canter lead changes, our simple trot through canter lead changes, and our flying changes. Anytime that it kind of increases difficulty, like canter lead changes on a straight line, having that inside leg actually be the aid that's marking the canter lead strike off helps us to nail it every time. So another reason why you might be finding that your horse isn't getting the correct canter lead is that they are actually working crooked. So our horses like to put the least amount of effort in possible for us to kind of stop nagging them, which means that sometimes, actually a lot of the time, our horses end up developing crookedness in their stride. So this was the first time I was working on, the first time I was riding Rabbit, and he doesn't have his right canter lead established. In the trot, we can see the way that he's dropping his pelvis and driving off the right hind, and the way that it's rotated and twisted so that the left hind sits higher and steps through deeper. And so what that means is that he's not stepping through and engaging the right hind. So the right canter lead strike off is basically impossible for him in this first lesson together. When we're looking at our horse's development and developing periods of straightness, balance, throughness into contact, forwardness, we are looking at how evenly they are tracking up from behind, whether they're stepping into the footfalls of their front legs, and if one leg is in a driving position and one leg is in a sitting position, If so you can see as he comes around the corner here, the way that he's driving off of that right hind, that puts his balance into his right shoulder. So if the balance is in the shoulder instead of the hind leg, that is what makes it hard to actually lift that shoulder up into that canter lead. So for a little bit more on that, listen to our podcast on canter leads, and we talk into how our horses need straightness for that strike off. In the meantime, let's have a look at what his canter leads look like and how they progress. So on our first ride together, your first ride on an unknown horse is more of an assessment. Do they understand how to even just to go into canter? And if they do understand how to go into canter, do they have a canter lead or do a canter strike off, or do they just rush and the trot gets faster and falls into canter? And then once we know these things, are they able to actually strike off on the correct lead? So we can already see the way that Rabbit's right hind is disengaging here, and as a result it puts the balance on the forehand. So when he goes to go into canter, it's the left shoulder that lifts, and so when we're asking for a canter lead, we need that shoulder to lift to come into canter. So understanding that he was about to pick up the wrong canter lead, I've circled around to ask again, was it my aid, was it my communication? You can see where he's thinking about picking up that canter lead, but the left canter is easier, and even then, he doesn't really have forwardness established in the canter. If we have a look at his left canter lead, when we go into our strike off, we're still lacking forwardness, but he's quite comfortable with picking that lead up. So there's a little bit of work also, not only is he twisted and rotated through the pelvis there, but the action of the hindquarters isn't connecting to the action of the forehand. And what that means is that he isn't engaging his top line and, connecting his movement through to lifting the shoulder. So we need to build up the quality of the working canter to help him pick up the actual canter leads as well. So if we have one more look, do I have a right canter lead? So play with a few buttons, play with a few things. Can I get him to strike off that right canter lead if I give him a little stretch? No, he's still significantly more confident and comfortable in that left canter lead. So this is Rabbit 2 months into our straightness, balance and engagement training. We write up the lesson plans to encourage our horses to track up evenly from behind, work with straightness and balance, forwardness, interconnection, developing throughness and self-carriage. So this is 2 months into that work with Rabbit, and you can see how he's still not getting the right canter lead, but we've been doing a little bit of work to get him stepping more evenly through from behind. So you can see where we're getting periods of that right hind engaging here. So it's back in a driving position there, and then we do start seeing little steps of it coming through. It's still in a driving position there. So we can't expect our horses to completely change their conformation within 2 months, but we can start working parts of their body that are a bit uneven and unbalanced. So it's stepping through now, and then we've also been doing a little bit of cue training with him here, where we can get the strike off for the canter lead from just using the cue of the whip on the shoulder to say which canter lead we want. So it becomes really important when we are trying to correct these canter leads that we reward for the effort of picking that canter lead up. You don't want to get, you've been spending 2 months trying to train this right canter lead into a horse, and then that you get the canter lead correct, and so then you're like pushing them to keep cantering because you're like, oh my god, this is amazing, I have the correct canter lead. That doesn't reinforce to the horse why it should put the effort into giving that canter lead for you. You've got to make sure that as soon as you get that canter lead strike off, you give them a break, you reward them, you give them heaps of praise, you might even consider giving them a treat, so that you're really actively rewarding the effort that they put into giving that canter lead for you. So this is Rabbit in October, so that's 5 months after we started working on our straightness and balancing exercises to get even engagement. And you can see now where that working canter is starting to become established and that right canter lead is building up and being able to maintain it for an extended period of time. Even just the length of time that he can hold that canter for compared to when we started. He's holding it for longer than he did with his left canter lead. So one of the things that we teach is that, being really aware of how long it takes your horse's body to adapt. When we're working with our horses, we're creating an environmental stress and their body is adapting to it. Their body can either adapt positively to it, where the stress is improving their overall posture, soundness and agility, or it can be to their detriment. So the stress can be creating crookedness, unsoundness, unevenness, unbalance, and then long term what we're looking at there is concussion and arthritis. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create the right kind of environmental stress for our horse's long-term soundness. So it takes 6 to 8 weeks to develop coordination, which is the firing of the nerves from the brain to the muscles from when you first introduce an exercise. So from when we first started asking Rabbit to work on his straightness training and to start trying to pick up this right canter lead, you're looking at 2 months of just trying to build up the coordination for it. 3 to 4 months is muscle tone. So we're looking at the 5-month period here. We can see that he's starting to build up the strength to get it, hold it and maintain it. And then 6 to 12 months is your bone density and your ligament density, and that's where the work that you're doing actually becomes part of their conformation. So you hop on and you have it. In that period of time, if we find old injuries or significant problems, it can really slow that development down. Like, this is basically the quickest you can get a horse trained up in a new movement that isn't already established. If you find that your horse has an old injury that it's been compensating for, or even when we're working with horses like Rabbit here, who's particularly crooked in his development, that can slow that time frame down as well. You may be looking at that timeline blowing out for closer to the 2 years, because you realize that your objective of getting that correct canter lead isn't as important as, say, maybe where they might be having some soundness issues from covering up and not rehabbing correctly an old injury. But yeah, this is the 5-month period. So Rabbit has been working through our training scale of lesson plans and exercises. And you can see where we're starting to, he's still not working over the back yet, but the working over the back comes after we have the working canter established both ways. So it's important firstly to get these canter leads well established and the working canter established in both directions, because the canter has a natural jump to it, a roundedness and a scope to it that connects the action of the hindquarters to the action of the forehand. And so we can then use the canter to build out the strength and balance through the chest and the shoulders, and build up the tone of the sling muscles. So second to this, Rabbit also has frequent body work to help with these adaptational changes, to ensure that we're managing the tightness that results from this work. Remembering that anytime you are working your horse in a new movement, their muscles are going to get tight and sore before they get bulk and they tone. So that's part of what we do with our lesson plans, is making sure that we're balancing our suppling exercises with our strength building exercises to ensure that our horses are maintaining both suppleness and strength to build out their overall straightness and balance. So if your horse's canter leads are something that you want to work on, feel free to message us or direct message us, or pop over to our website www.equestrianmovement.com/riding for soundness. Thanks for watching. Bye.